Yo, 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 what is up, my fallopian tubers? Cesario from the barrio coming back at you with another video for your butt. I don't know if anybody noticed if my picture is clear. I just started using my tablet when I bought my phone, like in 2019, I think. Um, I got a tablet with it for like $50 more, so I was like, okay, I guess I'll take it. It sounds cheap. And I never used it. I just almost never used it. But a couple last week I went live, and some dude was like, "Why does your phone always look like there's a booger on it or something?" And I was like, "Oh, because my screen is cracked." So I don't know if you guys can see it. Look at that. My screen is cracked, and right there's where the camera is. So all the cracks around it, I guess, make it look, not clear. So I've been using my tablet the last couple of days. So I'm gonna talk about some cards. I just picked out a couple cards real quick and just gonna go through them. And I showed this a lot, but it is the Pete Rose trophy card, his second year card. Now, you know how they say every card has a story, especially with me, since I buy all my cards in person. I usually have a conversation with the person I'm buying them from. Like, I don't know how much of a story there is. There is. People still have a story about the card, but it's a little different when you buy all your cards in person than as opposed to just hitting a button on an eBay post and it's in your mail. But anyways, well, this card right here, this card also was the second copy I owned. The very first copy that I owned of the Pete Rose, I had it for a good while, and then when I was on Instagram and I posted it, right away I got a message from a friend on Instagram who wanted to buy it. And I said, well, I don't sell my cards and this and that. He's like, well, most of those cards are counterfeit, right? And I'm all like, what? And I remember that this was like the very first time I think I ever really heard about counterfeit cards. I'll take it this was probably like 10 years ago. And so I was like, really? I was like, oh, man. And then I really started doubting. He's like, yeah, he's like, that card in particular is really counterfeited. And I was like, I didn't know that. And I remember looking at it and looking at it. And so he said, hey, I'll trade you for it. Would you trade for it? And I'm, and after just thinking, what if it is fake? I was like, oh I guess, I'm open to trades. And that's how I ended up getting this card right here. He sent me this Kobe, which at the time, I got it at $50 trade value. He gave me like 50 for it, and he gave me another autographed Kobe basketball. He sent me with a certificate and everything for the Pete Rose. And then after I did the trade, I was wondering, is like, why would he trade me like $100 worth of stuff if he thought that card was counterfeit? But anyways, I remember talking to the dealer when I saw this one. I told him, man, I had that card and I regret trading it. I said, but the guy was telling me it's probably counterfeit and this and that. And then he was like, he pulled this card out, and it was in this case, and he was like pointing out to the back. He's like, well, you see how it's miscut, how it's not centered? He's people who counterfeit cards usually make the cards better centered and higher grade. I guess is the way to put it nowadays. So he's so I guarantee you this ain't counterfeit. So I ended up buying this card. I don't remember how much. But Pete Rose, he was one of my favorite players when I was a kid because I used to be into stats. I had all these record books, and Pete Rose was the hit king. So, man, one of the things I remember is like every Sunday, my dad would send me to the 7-Eleven to get him a copy of the newspaper, and it was 75 cents back then. And so he would give me $1. So every Sunday, that was like my thing. In the morning, I would go on my bike to the 7-Eleven, buy the newspaper, have a quarter, and play a video game. All the 7-Elevens back then, they had all the Beckett, the price guides, baseball magazines, and stuff like that. So I would spend a little bit of time there, play a game, and then head home with my dad's newspaper. And one of the things I couldn't wait to do was see what Pete Rose did. Look at the box scores, because in the Sunday newspaper we have the box scores. and stats for every single team that played. So I used to look forward just to see, where Pete Rose stood in the hits, in his lifetime career hits. And man, there was this one Sunday I remember. I had my friend's bike because I had a bike that was stolen. He had a bike that was stolen. So kind of the way we tricked our parents in a way was I had his bike and he had my bike. So he would tell his parents, "Oh, this is Caesar's bike," and I would tell my parents, "This is Daniel's bike." And he had a GT Performer, and I had a Mongoose motorbike, which somebody actually just posted on Facebook. Who remembers his bike? And I said, "Oh man, I had that bike. Oh, I remember how heavy it was." And my friend had a GT Performer Freestyle, which looked really, really fancy and expensive. But it was freestyle, so it had brakes, but you could still twist the handlebars and do tricks on it. So I was on his bike this particular Sunday that I went to the 7-Eleven. And when on my way back, these two dudes started following me. Like one of the guy was riding on the handlebars and he had pegs on the front. And right away when they see me, they turn around and it's like, "Oh man, these guys are gonna try to jack me." And they started going faster and faster, catching up to me. So I started going faster, and they started going faster. And then when we got to the top of the bridge, I looked back, and that guy on the handlebars jumps off and starts running behind me. And I almost passed like my little shortcut to get to my house, and I hit the brakes. Like, I hit the brakes real hard because I was going to miss my little shortcut. And the guy was right behind me, and he hit me behind. I remember feeling his head hit my head. And after he hit me, and I got, and I stumbled a little bit, and then I took off to the shortcut. When I looked back, he was on the floor holding his little huevitos. You know what I mean? Because he hit his little eggs on the back of my seat. The GT Performer had like a curved tube, and the seat was like back. So he hit his, and like that gave me a kind of a chance to take off. And then when I looked back after I went around the block, they were on their way, but they were real far behind. But my house was still pretty far from there. So I went into this yard, and I went into the backyard, like pretending it was my house. And then the guys like still almost were going into the backyard. And this older lady and older man came out like, "Hey, what are you doing in our yard?" And I said, "These guys are trying to steal my bike." And then so they turned their attention to them and told them, "Hey, get out of here," and this and that. And so then they ended up leaving. So I talked to them for a little while. I told them, "Yeah, my dad sent me to get the newspaper." And then like once the guy was gone, like they went out and they said, "Oh, I don't see him." And then I went home, and I gave my dad the newspaper. But man, that was one thing I do remember is like every single Sunday getting the newspaper from my dad, but he would go through it, and I would have to wait. Even though he would read like the newspaper as it came chronological order, it would be like the front page, the business, the ads, and then the second to the last thing was the sports, and the last thing was the comics. So he would only let me see the parts that he had read, so I would have to wait, before he gave me the sports section. And then after that, he would give me the comic book section. Then I would look at all the comics, but I was really waiting for the baseball box scores all the time. But anyways, yeah, man. Sometimes I tend to forget how big sports fan my parents were. Yesterday, I went to my mom's house to eat dinner. She invited us over to dinner, and she's watching the Atlanta Braves versus the Philadelphia Phillies game. And then she just starts talking baseball, like, "Oh, Bryce Harper this, and then, oh, that guy Acuna this," and sometimes I was like, I forget like how hardcore of a baseball fan my mom is, and why I'm like this. But anyways, let's get to some cards. Well, this is not a card. This is a stamp. Showed you guys one of Babe Ruth yesterday. I have the whole team set of the Brave stamps. Oh, I thought I pulled a different one out. Another one. Well, maybe I dropped it. But, oh well, I'll show that one another day. But yeah, man, the Hank Aaron. Alright, and let's check out this card. This card I bought not too long ago. And I fell in love with it. Like, I don't remember ever seeing it. I don't remember it in my head. But when I seen it, I was like, wow, look how young Billy Martin looks in this 54 Bowman. And I bought this a couple months ago, $14. And just a sweet, sweet card. And then in the back here, it has a little trivia question. How many baseballs, see, I hate these glares, are how many baseballs are needed before starting a ball game? You know, and you turn it upside down and it says the answer is 50. All right. Now that's no longer the case. I think they just raised it too, but since I've been at Dodger Stadium, the umpire guy, the guy who's in charge of the umpire room, he has to mud up 12 of these cases of baseballs. Oh, I just made a mess. Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle. But he muds up 12 of these. You know, 12 baseballs. He has to mud up 12 of them, so that's what, like 122 or something? 112? I don't know. 112? But nowadays, I think they actually have to do a little bit more. Because there's been times, and I think it's increased, where they call them up, hey, make 2 more cases real quick. Mud up 2 more, like we're running out of balls. So that's kind of something I love about the back of this card that I think about. And then we got this 1960 Willie McCovey rookie card. Sweet trophy card. And one of the things that I always find curious about this is because it says selected by the youth of America. All right. So the Willie McCovey rookie, All-Star Rookies, says it was selected by the youth of America. I'm not too sure what that means, but he's selected as the first baseman of the All-Star of the rookies. And then next, we got a Ron Tompkins 1968 Rookie Stars. Sweet Ron Tompkins card right here. Look at the back. I always love how there's hardly any stats for like the rookies. I always think that's cool, which is why I wanted to show a different card, the other one, but I can't find it, so that'll be for another day. And another card I picked out to show, this one I also bought not too long ago, is this Yogi Berra from the 55 Bowman. As you can see, it was $20 because it's trimmed. All right. So in hindsight, when you look at it, it has like kind of, I don't know, 4 sharp corners. It looks pretty well centered, but it was dirt cheap because the guy said it's trimmed. I remember talking to the dealer that I bought it from, and he told me they sent it into PSA and they got it back as trimmed. So, well, you know, a card that they were hoping to get a few $100s for, they ended up selling it for less than they paid for it because it was trimmed. See, and that's kind of the mindset that I have is like, well, trimmed baseball cards are worth less, but now the new flippers, investors are trying to trim cards to sell them for more. And next we got this 55 Ted Williams. Sicko. Look at that smile. Look at that swing. You know, the older players, they have this way unique backswing that you don't really see anymore. Most backswings now, the bat drops to the ground almost. These guys are backswing, their bats were up. Like the Acuna, the bat down, but now it's bat up. Back then, it was back up. And he played for the Grapefruit League. Nice. Teddy Ballgame, guys. See what and then I got this 81 Topps Pete Rose. I had picked out this card and then I decided to go get the Pete Rose second year card. But this was a scratch off game that Topps had. Man, I hate these glares. That's the thing about when you're doing selfie mode, you're putting it right up, see, so like you can see what's on the screen. So it's hard to get that angle to avoid it. But these were 81 top scratch-off games. And that's the Pete Rose. So you scratch these off and you play a game. Next card I picked out real quick is the Ozzie Smith Rookie. Sicko. So this is the 79 Ozzie Smith Rookie. Sicko. And look at this card right here. We got a Ron Cey, the Penguin, rookie card. Sick Ron Cey. Ignore Chuck Norris over there. But, you know, one of those multiplayer rookie cards, you know, and the Ron Cey just makes these other guys more valuable because he's on the card. But sweet. Enfermo ese. Enfermo. Ron Cey, one of my favorite Dodgers growing up. And last but not least, the last card I'm showing was my very first 1952 Topps card that I ever purchased. Is this Bob Feller. Sicko. But Bob Feller, man, that little smirk. Love that. And look at Chief Wahoo right there. Chief Wahoo was forced to resign. But man, when I first started collecting, and when I first started buying vintage, when I had enough money to start buying vintage, I used to always feel like, man, I can't wait to get a 52. I can't wait to buy a 52. And then this opportunity came along and I got it. And after that, I always start saying, man, you're not a real collector unless you have a 52 Topps. I don't care what card it is. You just have to have a 52 Topps in your collection to consider yourself a real collector. Even though I just had it for like a couple days. But that's going to be my little showcase for today, guys. Vintage baseball. Love it. So, love the hobby. Just keep collecting baseball cards forever, I said. Ciao! Wow, 17 minutes. Went pretty long. I just had to go and get this out of the box. I guess I never did pull it out. But Darrell Evans, now, I guess you could say I kind of PC. That's what people call it now. I hate that term PC. Is just what I collected and what I liked. But what I liked to collect was players that had long careers. You know, like you look in the back of the card, the Topps always showed their whole career stats. So the longer they played, the smaller those numbers got. And I used to collect guys. I used to love to get cards of guys that had long careers. Jose Cruz, Darrell Evans, Bert Blyleven. I had this fascination with guys with long careers, just like how small the print was, you know, in the back of the card. And Darrell Evans was one of those guys who just had a super long career. And so was Pete Rose, you know. So there it is, Darrell Evans. Once again, signing off, Pepino Man. Love the hobby. And just keep collecting baseball cards forever, I say. Ciao! And if everybody wondered that tumbling noise, it was my Michael Jordan Funko Pop that fell off that I knocked off from the top out there. Air Jordan, got some air. And I can't believe I went that whole video without taking a sip of my beer. Or a rip from my weed. But I was distracted from baseball cards. Even better.